this place around. I see Bitcoin as one way to affect that change.
Hi guys. Yeah, good. You all doing? Okay, so I I have a presentation here, and I'll basically be talking about Bitcoin adoption in Africa, how it's been so far, the growth we've seen over the years, and I hope you have a good time. Okay. Hello? Okay. Right. Thank you. All right. So my name is Megasley, and I'm one team members at African Bitcoin. If you've been in the space for a while now, then you may have come across African Bitcoiners once or twice. And I am also the general manager at Africa Free Routing. I know you might be wondering talking about African Bitcoiners and also the presentation as well too. It was written Africa Free Routing and it's wearing Africa Free Routing, right? Most people don't really know the connection between African Bitcoiners and Africa Free Routing. Sorry about my slide. I don't know why it's showing like that. All right, so African Bitcoiners is basically just a community. We started to of people that were passionate about changing the current situation in Africa regarding Bitcoin, trying to increase the adoption of Bitcoin in Africa. And basically the main goal is just to onboard new Bitcoiners to the space, to the ecosystem, by teaching them about Bitcoin, and also from basically learning up to the way in which they can self-custody their Bitcoin as well. And you know very well that when it comes to Bitcoin adoption, Lightning Network, right? The Lightning Network is basically the game-changing protocol that has increased the adoption of Bitcoin, not just here in Africa, but all around the world, right? So we were looking at ways we could impact more, right? We thought of what better way to increase adoption than to, set up a Lightning-focused product or project, right? That is where we came about Africa Free Routing. So we started Africa Free Routing with the sole aim and purpose to drive and increase Lightning adoption in Africa. We run Lightning nodes, we run Lightning bootcamps, basically to teach developers on Bitcoin. We impact them with the knowledge they need to actually build Bitcoin-focused products. And also we onboard businesses as well, reach out to businesses that are not already accepting Bitcoin payment. We help them through the onboarding process, set up the Bitcoin payment for them, and just allow them to accept Bitcoin payment. All right? So before I go deep into the adoption part, I think it's really important for us to understand why Bitcoin is important for Africa. Why exactly do we keep talking about Bitcoin? Everybody needs to learn about Bitcoin. In short, why are we here? Because obviously we are here for Bitcoin, right? It's important to talk about this, really, really important. So Africa, as we know, is a beautiful continent, right? I love the fact that I'm from Africa, and I know most people here also do, right? We have a beautiful continent, we have beautiful resources, but the truth is, we have some problems, some challenges that is unique only to us. And the funny truth is, people outside of Africa might not really understand this as much as we do. And this problem is basically what Bitcoin provides solution to. There are a couple of them, but I decided to just pick these three, because these three are basically the most important right now when you talk about the problems we have in Africa, right? This one is currency devaluation, right? Otherwise known as inflation. This is a big problem for African countries, right? Some countries experience it more than others. You see, like a country where I come from, I'm from Nigeria. It's been crazy. Like the inflation rate has been so crazy. Currently now, a dollar is around 1,600 naira. But 2 years ago, it was basically around 300 naira. So you can see what has happened. Our purchasing power keep reducing every day. The things you were able to get with a certain amount of money yesterday or 2 years ago, you can't get it. You can't get the same thing with the same amount today. And then the second thing is high remittance fee. This is a problem. We have a lot of family members, we have friends in diaspora that would like to send funds to us here. And we also, maybe because of our businesses, the kind of businesses we do, we make payments, right? Send money outside of the country or outside of Africa generally. Now, the crazy thing is we pay a lot of fees with the current payment system, right? You spend a lot of money in fees just to get your funds out of the continent. This is a major challenge, right? And we are talking about fees around 9%. You pay up to 9% fee just to send funds out. And that's more like 2 times the global average of payments of fees you pay to send funds out. And then the last problem is limited banking infrastructure. Africans generally, currently we have 7% unbanked population in Africa. That is crazy, right? So people have money, they don't have way to save them, they don't have places to keep their money, and this is a big problem in Africa, right? Now, Bitcoin provides solutions to 3 problems. I know there are lots of other problems, but like I said, we decided to focus on these 3. Now, what are the solutions that Bitcoin brings to this, right? Now, the first is high remittance costs. With Bitcoin, thanks to the Lightning Network, you can send funds out with very low fees, right? And if you even have a Lightning node connected directly to the person you're sending, then you can send funds without paying any fee, right? That's beautiful. You can also make your payments are settled instantly with Bitcoin. You don't need to wait for days like the traditional bank system. And you don't need a bank to actually get this. You don't need a middleman to done. That is the beauty about Bitcoin. And then for currency devaluation, Bitcoin is deflationary when compared to the current traditional system or the currencies we have in our countries. Currently, the dollar is the strongest currency or one of the strongest currency in the world, but it still experiences inflation. So inflation happens to every currency in the world, right? And Bitcoin provides a solution for this. You can come in. Okay, and Bitcoin has a fixed supply, which means you can never make more of it. I know we are all familiar with that, so I'm not going to bore you with this. Then the currency policy independence. That's what Bitcoin also proffers. It doesn't depend on the government. The policy the government provides has nothing to do with Bitcoin. And then for banking structure, you don't need a bank account. So you don't need to go straight to the bank to do all those KYC sort of stuffs to use Bitcoin. And you can self-custody your funds, right? You can't do that with a bank. When you take your money to the bank, whatever happens to it can happen and you don't have anything to do with it. And rural area accessibility. Right now, Bitcoin can get to any place in the world as long as you have access to internet. But even with Mechankura now, thanks to Mechankura, you don't even need internet to use Bitcoin. So basically, it gives you these solutions, gives us solutions in Africa, right? And going into the adoption in Africa, Bitcoin adoption in Africa generally, this is what the ecosystem was for Q1 of 2024. That was January. And this is the statistics of the ecosystem generally, right? We had a total of 80 Bitcoin projects across Africa, across different countries in Africa. And the communities were the ones on top, basically. We had more communities than educators, right? And generally, this is what the stats looked like as at then. Then fast forward to Q1 of 2025, which is this January. You've seen the growth that has happened within the space of a year, right? If you're clapping, you can make it better. So we've experienced 77% growth in the ecosystem generally. And this is what the current stats is like. What happened to my slides? Whoa, I'm sorry about this. But currently we have 144 Bitcoin projects from 80 that we had last year. Have you seen how much growth we've gotten? And that's not just the beautiful part. Now we have more educators than communities. Isn't that wonderful? Because as we know, when it comes to Bitcoin adoption, education is like the most important things, right? We have more educators right now, and we have a lot of other companies, which you can see right here. We have meetups, we have tech meetups as well too, and conferences, right, like we are right now. That is beautiful. Now, this is the distribution of this project by region, right? In Western Africa, we have Nigeria leading with 18 Bitcoin projects and a total of 31 projects in Western Africa. Then in Eastern Africa, we have Kenya leading with 18 projects as well, and we have a total of 36. Then in Southern Africa, thanks to South Africa, we have 26 Bitcoin projects in South Africa and a total of 37 Bitcoin projects in Southern Africa. And then in Central Africa, we have just 4 projects. But thanks to Congo and Cameroon, then we have 2 projects in Northern Africa. Now, you can see this distribution right now. But the thing is, there are some things that are still missing when it comes to Bitcoin adoption in Africa with what I've just shown you right now. Currently, out of all the countries we have in Africa, 34 of these African countries still have no Bitcoin activity at all. That is more than 50%, right? So we still have a lot of work to do. And then the previous slide, like the previous slide I showed before, the adoption is distributed unevenly across regions, right? Some regions have more projects than the others. You see places like Central Africa, Northern Africa, you almost have, it's almost zero, basically. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And we have limited reach to underserved areas as well, too. Them are located in places that people really, really need them, right? How many of them are located in those areas that people really, really need this Bitcoin, right? These are the things we need to think about when we are setting up Bitcoin projects. It's good to set up a Bitcoin project in Cape Town, right? People are doing well. But the people that really, really need Bitcoin are deep inside the villages, right? Those are the kind of places we need to focus on. And the Francophone African countries are not really, really reached enough, right? Most of the Bitcoin materials that you see are in English. Most of the conferences we host are in English. And there are people, there are citizens of these countries that do not understand English. How can we carry them along? So these are the things that are currently still missing that we need to think about. But let's go to what we've actually seen, that is the current challenges that are limiting this adoption, right? From our research and from what we've seen, we've picked up that the number one problem that is limiting adoption is lack of sufficient awareness and education. That is the primary thing, the primary problem that is limiting this. As you know, we all came into Bitcoin because we heard about it. They've not gotten this opportunity, which is why education and awareness is very, very important. You know how it is when you come into Bitcoin. When you learn about Bitcoin, you never want to go back, right? That is how it is. So instead of convincing people to accept Bitcoin payments in their businesses first, the first step should be to teach them what Bitcoin really is. And the truth is, most people have a lot of misconceptions about Bitcoin, right? most people think, from my experience, a lot of people reach out to me, and the first thing they ask you is, how can I make money from Bitcoin, right? That is lack of knowledge. That's lack of understanding, and that is what we need to change, right? But then, why is this actually happen? Why do we have limited education? We have educators out there, but why is Bitcoin adoption not flying as much as it should, right? Now, these are the reasons. The first one is perception of scam. If you've been in the space for a while now, you may have noticed that most people don't take Bitcoin as easy as we do, especially people of the older generation, right? You talk to people, and the first reaction they'll give to you is, this thing is a scam. I like to say this story when I like to tell this story a lot. There was a time, because I love Bitcoin and I talk about Bitcoin a lot, so in my local church, there was a time I was telling somebody about Bitcoin, and one of my pastors overheard me. And guess what he said? He walked up to me after the whole scenario and he said that he thought I was a good boy. But I've involved myself in Bitcoin, and right now he knows that I'm one of those scammers that is walking around. So I had to speak to him, give him the right knowledge that he needs, let him understand what Bitcoin is. After the whole conversation, the next thing he said was, how can I buy Bitcoin? So that was beautiful. I told him you can buy as little as 1,000 naira. And guess what? He gave me 1,000 naira right there and said I should buy some Bitcoin for him for a start. So education is the primary thing. People perceive Bitcoin to be a scam, which is one of the things that is limiting this adoption. And then the second thing is we have limited fundings for educational projects. People have the passion to start up projects. You see a lot of them. There are lots of Bitcoin projects in this conference. You go to other conferences in Africa. That is why we see the growth that we are seeing. And it's important for you to understand also that even with that growth you've seen, there are some projects we've had to take out when they are dormant for up to 6 months and above. We take them off. So we've taken out some projects out of there. And the reason why these kind of things keep happening is because these passions do not have the funds to actually fuel what they want to do, right? So this is another problem that is limiting education projects. And then shortage of local expertise and mentorship. Like I said, the passion is there. If you need people that are passionate about Bitcoin, they are everywhere, right? And they want to start things. Some of them have these ideas. And some of them will just go ahead and start this project. But there is no adequate mentorship, right? No expertise. They don't even have information about how to run a business, how to run a company. And you see them starting this project. Within the space of 2 or 3 months, they've packed up, right? This is one of the things that is limiting the adoption that we are seeing. Then we have presence of malicious or misguided projects. We've seen a lot of them in the space. People coming up with so many promises, so many big promises. They are going to do this, they are going to do that. And at the end of the day, when they get the funding they need, they disappear, right? They just disappear, they vanish. And then you look for the project they said they were going to do, nothing is happening. So this is another problem that we face in the ecosystem. And then lack of training for Bitcoin businesses, right? I know a lot of here, we've gotten that experience, right, of running a company, an experience of running a Bitcoin business. But these people, what they have is only passion. Sometimes they have passion and they have little funding. It is important. We all know that for you to do anything, adequate training is very, very important. So it's important for us to extend our hands as well to reach out to these people, teach them how to run Bitcoin businesses. Because, as you know, running Bitcoin business might just, I think it's harder than running a normal business out there because there are lots of challenges you need to face. And these people, because they don't have these experiences, they'll end up packing up at the end of the day. These are the problems that the ecosystem is currently facing. Now, what can we do to close the gap, right? This is a collective effort, generally. I know it is a community effort, but we at African Bitcoiners, this is what we've decided to do, actually. So we aim to bridge the gap in Bitcoin adoption in 21 out of the current 34 countries, we've seen that 34 countries in Africa do not have any Bitcoin activity in it. So we've decided that we are going to bridge this gap by establishing what we call a community builders initiative, right? This is what we want to do. We've decided to do this because we want to take our mission further, to reach out to these countries. And basically, how are we going to do this? We are going to collaborate with Bitcoin educators across Africa. We need them to teach and impact this knowledge to these guys. Then we train and equip 21 community builders. So we reach out and pick community builders in 21 out of these 34 countries, equip them with the knowledge they need, train them on how to go about, this Bitcoin adoption process, and also we provide them with the needed funds to carry out this effectively for at least 1 year, right? So we know that running things like this involve funds, it involves money. So this is one of the things that we are going to do, and this is our goal for this year. And we know we can't actually do this alone, basically. It is something that we need to do collectively as a community, right? And that's why I am asking you as well too, if this sounds like something that interests you and you'd want to be a part of it, then you can reach out to us in any of our socials, or you can just meet me after this, this presentation, and then we can work things out. And finally, like I said, Bitcoin adoption is a collective effort. The growth we've seen today, the 77% growth we've seen today, is not because one person did something huge about it. It's because different people from different parts of the world stood up and decided to do something about the current situation of Bitcoin adoption in their locality. So it's something we need to do collectively. We have decided on our own on what we want to do, which is reaching out to 21 of these 34 countries that have not been reached yet. But you also have a part to play. As a Bitcoiner, as someone that loves Bitcoin, as someone that loves Africa, you have a part to also play. And this is something I implore you to do. And yes, thank you very much. That is the end of my presentation. Lastly, before I go, we are having a Lightning Bootcamp here in Cape Town. That is next weekend. So please, if you Lightning Development Bootcamp, actually, if you know someone that could benefit from this, then please tell them to register or apply for the scholarship. We'll be sure anybody that applies for a scholarship here in the conference is definitely going to get in. And join us there. Thank you very much.